So here we are for another episode of the Healed Approach podcast. And today I am excited to have Jason Woodward on. Welcome, Jason, and thank you so much for being here today.
Welcome, Rebecca. Thank you. And thank you for having me on your podcast.
It's going to be a great podcast. It really, really is. Just don't know if we're going to get it all into the time that we're allocated for it.
We'll try.
But Jason, so you are from, it's PTC or PT Contractors, is that correct?
Yeah, I'm the SHEQ Manager at PTC, or PT Contractors, as you said. And that means I look after the health, safety, quality, and environmental, amongst other things, sort of supporting HR and looking at and supporting the culture of the business.
Excellent. A word I love to hear. Supporting culture, or a phrase I love to hear, sorry. But you haven't always been in the industry, have you? It's only been, is it 9 years or so?
Yeah, I started with 9 years this January. I previously was in the marine industry in towage and salvage. I started there when I was 17 and worked my way up to master at quite an early age of 23. I went on to become sort of senior master, training master, and then came ashore into sort of a lot more leadership roles, supporting the whole organisation for the same sort of things through health, safety, quality, and environmental. So coming from a high risk sort of operation at sea, your mindset is used to assessing high risk and be able to work it out so people can go about their daily activities safely.
Yeah. So what brought you into construction?
A bit of a life change decision. My wife wasn't well at the time, and she was going through, I know she wouldn't mind me saying, going through breast cancer. And I was working as European manager at the time, sort of flying out on a Sunday night and getting back late on a Friday night. So by the time I washed, ironed and packed my bags ready, it left very little time to be at home and support. So I took the decision to leave, and I don't regret it. I always say that sometimes when you make these decisions, they're big life-changing decisions, but I made it, stuck to my guns, supported her through the worst, and about 9 months later, I thought, getting a bit bored and itchy now. I want to get back doing something, and the easiest thing would have been to go straight back into that same sort of industry. But I sort of thought, no, challenge myself. Had a look around, and I saw sort of construction or transport, something along those lines. It was full of probably the same problems, because I like working with people. So industries that were very male dominated and full of all the attitudes that come with that. So with that, I put my CV out on CV Library. About a week later, I got a phone call from a lovely lady that now works in my team.
Wow.
And she's the MD's daughter. She said that they'd seen my CV on and liked it. Would I come in and have a chat? And sort of the rest is history. So I walked out of there, starting in 2 weeks' time as their new SHEQ Manager. So that's safety, health, quality, environment. And sort of never looked back, really. The industry had the same sort of problems that the marine industry had, totally male dominated, some chauvinistic attitudes, some caveman attitudes.
Yes, tell me about it.
All these sort of things. And I thought it was a real shame, because I saw it as something that was holding the industry back a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I was going to all these meetings and hearing that they can't attract new blood into the industry. And I sort of thought for a while as to why that was. Was it because it was dangerous, or was it because it was poorly paid? No, a lot of it, I think, was the way the staff were treated.
Yeah, I think
it seemed to be a revolving door. There was a lot of attitude where either if your face didn't fit or you didn't jump how high when they said things like that.
Not very inclusive.
No, it was very Victorian almost.
Yeah.
And certainly not inclusive. And there was very little diversity. And there was all sorts of issues with prejudice and racism and all sorts of things. And I thought, that's not something that I like or had seen. So coming from marine industry, where it's very diverse, I had a crew of 8 and sometimes there was 8 different nationalities.
Yeah.
And we were used to that, and it was nice. You
I was-
learned so much from that.
Yeah, and that must have been like, what were the advantages of that?
I think it's just the broad depth of understanding and knowledge about different cultures and how you could appreciate what they could bring.
Yeah.
And, at the same time as understand some of the cultural stuff and just be a bit sensitive to it.
And I think also as well, if you've got that diversity, it makes you or helps you to realise that the way that you've always done things is not necessarily the best way. It's just something that's embedded within the way that you've been brought up or the way that you've been conditioned, etc. So having that diversity is really enriching from a personal and a business perspective.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I think I take my, I wouldn't say relaxed attitude to things because I'm anything but I'm a bit like a swan sometimes, serene, serene on the outside and pedaling like mad underneath.
That sounds very familiar.
Because the role is like a captain,
yeah,
you get used to playing that role where even in bad situations, maybe you're stuck in the North Sea towing a rig and it's a, 9 or a foot storm 10 and the crew are looking at you, for guidance. Are you going to keep them safe? Things like that. So you get used to doing the right thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how hard it is and how long it takes, doing the right thing is important. And it was something my grandfather always taught me. I spent a lot of time with him as a child growing up, and I took, I think, a lot from him. He was an absolute gent, the way he treated people. And I thought, I'm going to emulate that.
That's really interesting as well. Sorry. I do want to go on to talk more about kind of obviously coming into the industry, etc. But I think it's a really good point that you've made there as well about how it's, the way sometimes that we operate within businesses and the way that we lead has a lot to do with our values and our upbringing. And I'm very conscious of and I'm very, very conscious of that as a mother of 2 boys, of making sure that, always there are always mistakes to be made, but it's how do you make sure that you instill those good values early on. And I think, the role models that we have in our life are really, really important when it comes to that. Right. And obviously the role models that you have for your family, but also as well, and I see it with my boys, the role models that they get also at football, at scouts, at school, they're also really, really important, aren't they? I think.
Leadership is so important. I run a sort of behavioural based sort of training and leadership in-house program at BTC, and we do a lot of learning from nature. Yeah. So we learn studying meerkats to understand about their safety culture, and they have what's called an interdependent safety culture, where technically they shouldn't even exist. They live in one of the most harshest environments, yet they thrive. And how is that? It's because they do the right thing. Yeah. If one of them's on sentry duty, they stay on sentry duty while the other ones get their head down to dig for food and things like that, despite all the predators trying to attack them. So there was a lot to be learned from that side of it. And then we combine that with learning from elephants and the study of elephants, because they're the greatest natural leaders on the planet. And so leadership is so important, and we do several exercises to do it, and we talk about who inspires them as great leaders, and various different things, family members, sort of names come up, but also things like I remember the winning English Rugby World Cup, going back a few years now, but there was 15 leaders on the field, so you can have a team that's working on a construction site, and they can all be leaders. It doesn't matter whether they're the apprentice that's just joined, or one of the plant operators, or one of the foremen, or one of the site managers. It doesn't matter. They can all show great leadership.
Absolutely.
And working, I think any good team, if you analyse it, they're a team of leaders.
Yeah. And I think that's an ethos as well. I think that I always kind of that's embedded within a lot of the things that I do as well, because it's, and we're in a world now as well where hierarchy is something that we're moving away from a little bit now, and we're moving more towards collaboration and working together, and that the ladder to the top, it's not the way that it was anymore, and I think that what you've just said there is super, super important. When we're talking about leadership isn't just about the person at the top. It's not just about your line manager. It's exactly what you said. It's developing those skills personally to be able to step in at any point and take the lead, or just lead on a daily basis and take responsibility. And I do find, I don't know about you, but going back to obviously what you saw when you came into the industry, I do find that there is often a lack of that on site and in the industry. It's like constantly relying on somebody else to kind of take the lead rather than taking responsibility.
For sure, yeah. And not so much at PTC and other companies. I'm sure there's plenty of other organisations that are operating the same as us, but we've sort of flipped it on its head a bit. So we have a manage up, support down structure.
I wanted to talk to you about that, yes. So I'm glad you...
Even though in my job title says manager, actually it should just say supporter, and that's how I see myself. My role is to facilitate support to all of the staff, whether it's making sure they've got the right culture, whether it's they've got the right tools, the right skills, the right support, and they'll deliver in spades. Excuse the pun, construction. But
it's unlocking that potential, isn't it?
Exactly that.
Which also I know I wanted to also ask you about, because you've been quite open as well about your own neurodivergence. So
yes, I'm dyslexic.
And how has that shaped your kind of view of leadership and how you're...
Funny enough, I wouldn't have thought this when I was a teenager, but now I realise it's an incredibly powerful skill. It's a people who are dyslexic have many skills over people that aren't sort of neurodiverse. It allows me to photographic memory. It allows me to think outside the box. Most people who are dyslexic are very analytical. They're very good sort of solving problems and finding ways around things. I often say people never see me coming because I don't come through the front door. I've snuck down the chimney and I'm sort of roasting my feet on the fire, and they're like, how did he get there?
Love that. Keeping people on their toes.
It keeps people on their toes because they don't see you coming. Because the ability with the photographic memory is to reverse engineer things. So you see the problem and you work it back. How did that become a problem?
Yes.
What steps do I need to change on that journey to that problem to give you a different outcome? And then try and re-engineer it until you find a positive outcome. So therefore, when you start that journey, the hurdles and the steps that you're going to need to take. And that's a skill that I see very common in construction.
Yes, it is something that's common, I think. However, do you think that we are operating in cultures that are allowing that to be nurtured and to be... Because, you spoke about how in the industry you see, a bit of a caveman culture. There are mindsets that need to shift a little bit. There is still a lot of misogyny in the industry. And, I hear a lot, oh, no, it's not happening anymore. It is. It's just not happening so explicitly. But I guess where I'm going with this is, do you think that if we had cultures that were... that did create more of a sense of belonging, that created that more inclusivity, we would be able to tap into these skills a little bit more? Because I absolutely believe that
100%.
because the industry...
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's exactly what we're trying to do.
Yes.
And as I was mentioning to someone this morning, that very same thing is that if you open your doors and open your mind at the same time, and support people, give them the right skills and the right environment and able to operate, they will flourish and they will blossom and they will pay you in dividends. But comes with that trust in the process.
Yes.
of being open.
Yes.
And that's where I thank my MD, Philip. He's been absolutely amazing, incredible guy to work for. And
starts at the top, right?
And there's nothing I wouldn't do for him, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that culture now is spread down through the whole organisation. So, I see that same passion now in those that are part of the PTC team, all giving their A game every day to sort of produce something quite amazing.
And that's that's not as common as it needs to be in the industry.
Sadly not, but I believe in showing
This
rather than telling.
Absolutely, that was the whole reason I started the podcast, was to talk about these stories and kind of lead, show people how they can lead on these things. But I think I do have a question, and sorry if I'm putting you on the spot, but I guess if somebody's listening and they realise that maybe they're struggling with some of the things that we've been talking about, what's the one piece of advice you would give them to,
don't listen to those negative voices that tell you can't do something, that you're thick, you're stupid, you're not capable, you're struggling with reading or spelling. I have very creative spelling, but hey, I use spell check. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, go on, carry on, because that does lead me on to a really...
That doesn't affect my creative mind. I would... Don't listen to the negative voices externally, but don't listen to them internally either, because I think what happens for years and years as a child, growing up into sort of teenager, I was told, "Oh, you're a thicko, you're an idiot." I've gone on to be, get my master's ticket. I'm also
well done, amazing,
an IOSH chartered practitioner, or now professional as we're called, and I had to take more exams than most people, and I've had to work hard at it. But I've used my dyslexic skills, things like photographic memory recall and stuff like that, to be able to get me through it. So I've developed my own skill set to sort of get over these type of problems. And everyone's capable of doing it.
They are.
But they just need to not listen to the negative voices, both internally and externally, and just, it's hard work, but stick to it and it will pay.
I think, and that's inspirational, really inspirational, Jason. Thank you for sharing that, because I think, that resilience and that belief in yourself, it becomes almost like, something that you need to practice. And I think the more that you do it, the more that you prove to yourself that you can do it. But it does bring me on to, this, because you spoke before about your experience as a child and being called a thicko and what have you. And I think that, the education system, it doesn't teach us that growth mindset. It's got a very fixed mindset when it comes to teaching the next generation. And I think this is often, and I don't want to, be divisive. I don't want to, talk about all of the problems that we've got in education versus the problems that we've got in the workplace. But I do think that it's something that we do need to talk about, and that we do need to, raise to the fore, because I think unless we do, stop that narrative, it's still there. I've not long, I still operate, I still work in the education system. I came out of it full time only a year and a half ago, and there is still this perception that you've got to work hard, get your GCSEs, go to university, and if you're not that bright, then maybe you could go into the construction industry or something like that. But I see it even with my own children. They're struggling with their self-esteem, and I was talking to a college recently, and they were talking about the dropout rates for their students, because the students just didn't believe in themselves, because through the education system they'd learned that because they couldn't pass an exam, that they weren't good enough. And I think that that's something that we need to have more honest and open conversations about, and this is where we need to bridge the gap.
I think sadly, I think we've lost our way a little bit, and this is only my opinion, obviously. We sort of fundamentally forgot why we send our kids to school.
Yeah. Yes. I think you're. Yes, I say this all the time.
I believe that we should be preparing them for the world of work.
Exactly.
Because 97% of us eventually leave school, education, and end up in work. And so many of those people have so much more talent than what they realise, could go on into far more challenging, more exciting roles that really get the best out of them, and they get the best out of it as well. So sadly, a lot of people, like I say, it's their negative voices internally. I had a careers advisor at a typical school careers evening where local companies get invited to come along. And this has happened to me a few times. And this chap came across who was a teacher head as well. And he said to me, he said, I've got a couple of young lads. He said, I'll bring them over to you shortly because they're failing at their education.
Yeah. That was
and I was just stunned.
His
perception of our industry only took people that were failing at education.
Yes, this is still happening, and I remember that was the kind of narrative. That was the kind of language that I was using when I was teaching. When I look back, and I always say this, I wasn't the greatest teacher because all I did was try and get my kids through exams. I was trying to teach them to pass an exam and to and probably to.
But we should be teaching and preparing them
for the workplace. And I say this all the time. That is the whole purpose of education. But you're right. It's almost like we've lost our way a little bit. Yeah. But and I think.
But if you had things like performance target based rules with schools performing to the number of GCSEs passed or the number of whatever qualification passed, then I think it takes the focus from the teachers away from preparing them for work and only achieving their target, which is getting them through an exam.
Absolutely. And then obviously raising the participation age and keeping children, in education from 16 to 18. Now, I remember when that came in and I thought it was a great thing at the time. And now I kind of think, well, some kids at 16 want to go out and get a job and work, and but this is where apprenticeships can be incredibly powerful.
Very much so. And I'm a product of going through like cadetship, which is a marine version of an apprenticeship. They're in incredibly good way to end up in a fantastic role with more experience at the same time as not being burdened with a huge debt.
Yes.
For going to university. I mean, we have apprentices that are not only earning a good wage, getting all the experience on site, but all of their fees, whether it's college and uni, are all found by us.
Yeah. I mean, it's apprenticeships.
There's no noose around their neck, the burden of debt when they're finished.
And again, though, they're a great pathway, and I think there are still challenges around those because obviously getting apprenticeships it's not always an easy, straightforward path. There's so much inconsistency in it, and also retaining apprentices can be. But I think that they're challenges that we need to overcome. It's what a lot of the work that I do is aimed at. But I also know, and I do want to make sure that we do talk about this, is because this is the whole reason that we ended up connected, Jason, isn't it? Is because I came along to the Hampshire Construction Training Association to do a talk about inclusion in the industry. Ironically, you weren't actually there because you were winning an award, I think.
Yeah. I was actually up here at the Rosper Awards picking up our 8th gold medal award for health and safety.
Amazing. I'll let you off then. But that was kind of where the idea for the podcast, was born, or the idea for you coming on the podcast was born, because I know that obviously you are involved with the HCTA, and also as well, I wanted to talk a little bit about iConstruct. Can you?
Well, I certainly can.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So, HCTA, of which I'm a committee member of.
Yes.
I joined the HCTA shortly after, so it would have been about 8 years ago, 8.5. I was going to the meetings every quarter, getting involved in different things, and I like what I saw. And as you can tell, I'm quite passionate about what I do, and especially this industry. So I sort of ended up on the committee, of which I've done for a while now. But shortly after sort of joining the committee, I sort of raised the question, because I'm on various committees. I'm on the local employer group for the CTEC, which is the training centre, civil engineering training centre that we match funded between sort of 20 odd companies to build. And I had close ties with the CITB, and I'm now on the is CITB's employer network as well. But anyway, at the HCTA meeting, I sort of, there was an any other business at the end, and I sort of put my hand up and stood up and I said, as the fresh face of this industry in the near boy, I said, I'm going to all these different meetings and hearing that there's, the same woe, that we can't get new blood in this industry. And and I said, can I just ask everybody, why do they think that is? And what are you doing about it? They sort of all looked at me as if I had two heads.
I just want to say here, before I forget as well, is that, and I wanted to mention this before, is that that's the power of coming outside of industry as well. Like when I first came into the industry, there was a lot of, pushback. Oh, well, she's new. What does she know? But actually, because you're kind of coming in from another industry and you're quite new to the industry. You bring a different perspective. You're bringing in a different perspective, which is massively powerful. Anyway, go back to having two heads, Jason. Sorry.
Yeah. So along with my two heads, I sort of said, what are you doing about it? And nobody could give me an answer. Well, and they all looked at each other and I said, well, I'll ask you another question. Who do you think's going to fix the problem? They still looked at me blankly, looked at each other blankly. And they said, well, what could we do? And I said, well, you could stop moaning about it for one thing and do something about it.
Absolutely.
And they said, well, what could we possibly do? And I said, well, I do have a bit of an idea. I said, this is something that we did in the marine industry on the back of a big COMAR exercise where we invited schools to bring along coachloads of children and interview the hundreds of stakeholders that were involved, find out about the job roles. Because again, it's another industry that's not widely seen by everyone on shore because you're at sea.
Yeah.
It's an alien environment. So not many people get to see it. And I think the same with construction. Most professional construction is done at what I call at public distance, behind hoardings on private land. And it's only when the facades and hoardings come down, you get to see this finished product, whether it's a new tube station, a bridge, a tunnel, a road, doesn't matter what it is. So people don't really see what's going on. They don't see the job roles within
Absolutely.
it. It's not got that focus.
Yeah.
What they do see is a small builder maybe on their road doing an extension or something like that, or they might see a roofer, or that's the closest they probably normally get to what I call professional construction. They certainly don't get involved or close to large civil engineering projects. Things like that goes on in and around big towns and cities.
And they're not learning about any of that at school either. So
and no, and sadly the careers advisors know little about it, as I found out as well, but that's another story. So I said to them, well, why don't we do something on the lines of have a big event where we invite loads of schools to bring students along. They get to interview a company and find out about the job roles in a scenario that I wrote about us all coming together to build a emergency hospital. I sort of wrote this story that sinkholes had appeared around Southampton City General Hospital, and they've had to shut the whole site down for obvious reasons. And we're all coming together to build an emergency hospital because building a normal hospital takes over 10 years, incredibly, as I found out. So they come along, the idea was that they come along and they interviewed these staff, and then they made a presentation, and then they presented that in front of a judging panel. So anyway, they all sort of went, "Oh, okay, that sounds interesting." And luckily, the rest of the committee at the HCTA supported the idea. We had the CITB there as well. I had a chap called Lawrence, who I'm good friends with. He also said, what a fabulous idea. And he said if it worked, he could sort of see it being run possibly nationally, which is still a hope and a passion of mine.
I think it's really important.
So 4 years ago, or 5, but unfortunately COVID knocked it the start on the head, as we all know, with things like this. So we got going in the first year. We had 168 students that came along, and they interviewed a company for half an hour. They then went away, and we've got people to help them in a presentation, help them with sort of called life skills for work, making presentations. And, many of us in the workplace have to present to our colleagues or clients, some both. And then stand in front of a judging panel made up of sort of MDs, CEOs, people from various leadership teams, giving them direct access to the people at the top in our industry, which is just unheard of.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it took a lot of convincing to get everybody on board and the companies on board.
But if anybody could do it, you could do it, Jason.
I don't know about that. But yeah, we do seem to be getting really good traction. So my plan was to double and double every year. Whatever we do, we double it for the next year. So the second year we had about 240 students through the door.
Incredible.
Last year we had just shy of 400 students through the door. This year we've already got confirmed about 650 with a potential 800 students coming.
How did you just keep doubling it each year? What? Please tell me your growth plan. I mean, I need some tips.
I think, for me personally, is making sure that we build a good team, a committee team around supporting the event and organising the event. There's an awful lot of stuff that goes on that people don't see, that they just turn up. So yes, there's a lot of planning that goes on throughout the year that culminates in a 2-day event. And we got some headline sponsor, which is Sunbelt Rentals. They're amazing. They bring along loads of plant and kit for them to see. We've got about 20 construction companies involved, 17 direct in what we call the stakeholders, the ones being interviewed. And they have a stand which is, a bit better than just a table and a few rolled up banners. And each one is challenged with having a 5-minute warm-up fun activity, something that's interactive that the students have to get involved with to warm them up a bit. And then they do a half-an-hour interview of the job roles involved with that company, and they're part of the scenario in building this hospital. And then get chaperoned across to another building at Seamast, where we have prep rooms, where they get help and support to make a presentation, a 5-minute presentation. They again go through to the judging rooms, where they're judged to get 5 minutes to present their findings and what they've learnt about the job roles and careers in construction. And then, and for that, there's about 24 amazing trophies that they can compete for. And then it's playtime. So then we have some really exciting activities for them to get involved with. So we have VR there, which they probably only seen VR in what I call a gaming situation, maybe at home and what have you. So to understand that we use VR for real and 3D modelling, robotics. So
my son,
we have remote controlled operated plant, which they can have a go at.
Yeah.
They can, we've got drones there. We use drones a lot now. So you could be a drone pilot and still work in construction. You could be a 3D modeler and still work in construction.
My son, my 2 boys, they just can't get their head around some of the stuff I tell them. They're like, what, really?
Yeah. In fact, a 3D modeler in construction probably earns more than one that works in animation and things like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The construction industry is incredibly well paid, and it's extremely stable business.
Yeah.
I'm not talking, the housing market can fluctuate up and down, but the majority of construction is civil engineering, infrastructure projects, roads, tunnels, bridges, railway networks, electrical networks, the services, all of these things people take for granted. They all were built by civil engineers. And we take it all for granted that when we flick a switch, that the power just miraculously appears to power whatever we want. But it took civil engineers to get it there.
Yeah.
And things like that. So,
and these things, by the way, sorry, but these things aren't embedded within our curriculum and our school system. And I do, I've been involved in quite a few construction and education events. And whenever I ask, younger children actually do tend to be a little bit more creative in their responses when I ask them about what the construction industry, which is great to see. But the older kids, secondary school children, it's always, construction, they still think of it as slave labour, bricks and mortar, long hours, working away.
Muddy boots, holes in the ground.
Still, they are still the most common responses when I ask, what do you think about when you think about construction?
Yeah.
So
that's what iConstruct is about showing them it is so much more.
Yeah.
There is literally 250 plus direct roles in construction. There's probably a further 250 plus in indirect. You think about even down to scientists. This construction industry relies on people developing the latest types of concrete, self-healing concrete now, self-healing tarmac, transparent aluminium. We're using
transparent wood as well is on the horizon.
We're using robotics. We're using, like I say, all the sort of 3D modelling power, AI, and stuff like that in this industry. It's a very high-tech industry now, and it seems to have slipped under the radar of all of these students and careers advisors. The idea when they come to the show is it's about inspiring young minds. That's what I always said at the start. It's about inspiring young minds about the many roles and potential and possibilities, and just not to shut it off, especially for girls. The schools have been very good.
I'm glad you mentioned that.
So on average, 40% of the students they bring are female, which is what we want. I want 50 or more, but they're really trying to work with us to try and bring as many girls along as they do boys.
And because
showing them, and not just that, but also those that are also neurodiverse as well. And we had a couple of young girls that came last year, and I remember it distinctly because as event sort of director, I have the lucky role of being able to walk the event constantly and just making sure everything's right and having a VHF radio with me and stuff so they can contact me if there's a problem. And these two girls were asked a question, and I've now made it a mandatory question for the judges at the end of every presentation to ask, what one thing could you tell us that you've learned from today being at the event? And they said that they never thought, not that they would consider construction, but the construction industry would consider them.
Yeah.
And actually, this particular girl who said it, she's incredible with maths, absolutely fantastic with maths, and a bit sociably awkward. And I said, that reminds me of one of my staff. And I said, who's an estimator sort of thing, jokingly. But it just shows you we need lots of different skill sets, and being able for them to see that and right up close to hand is incredibly powerful. And it's about planting a seed right from young as year 7, that
but then
there may be something for them, rather than, I think parents, especially with girls, they start shutting doors at a very early age for girls, that anything to do with STEM is keep away from engineering and construction, that's not for you. Grandparents do it, and before the time they get to 16, they're already shut off to the possibility of going into construction.
Well, this is, and you've touched on something I talk a lot about as well. It's really interesting what you shared about that girl as well, because I think that's something that I've definitely come across as well, is that younger, well, even if I wanted to go in, I'm not going to get accepted into that industry.
I think the whole event is about showcasing the amazing potential that is there for them should they want it. And just don't close the door. So what I say to them, don't close the door, because again, you don't have to. The other perception, I think, with a lot of the students is that if they start in a role, they're stuck with that. And I keep.
But this isn't construction specific. That isn't construction specific. I think that is just the narrative that that we do share with our young. I think it's just.
I've had many different jobs.
Yeah, but you don't when you're. It's because we still, the education system. What do you want to be when you get older? It's not who do you want to be. It's not what kind of life do you want to live. It's not kind of, how do you want to feel when you get older? What impact do you want to have? It's what do you want to be when you get older? So at a very young age, we then believe that there's one pathway and that's it. And that's the only thing we can do. I mean, I see this all the time. I see this when I was in education. I never really thought I would ever come out of education as a teacher.
But why don't we tell our young generation that it's only a stepping stone, it's a start.
This is it. Well, this is why we need, the education system does need to, and there are shifts. I do see things happening. It's just not quick enough. And I think stuff has to happen obviously at more of a government level, but I think, there needs to be more opportunities in schools for children, more opportunities for work experience, more opportunities for children to
Absolutely.
experience different different industries. There needs to be role models like you that have
exactly that. I can only encourage what we're doing with one of the local schools, Mountbatten in Southampton, is we're going every other week there, and we're sort of taking over a class for the afternoon or the day, and we're taking them through learning practical skills about construction, teaching them about all the different job roles, and we actually take over. And fair play to Mountbatten for doing that, because it allows you a different interaction, because it's over a longer period of time and you're doing little fun challenges together. It opens their minds completely to the world of work, how we do what we do. And we always say, everyone starts here, but we've all had multiple jobs and roles. It branches off into different lanes, and you can choose whichever lane. There's one thing this industry is very good at.
Yeah, exactly.
Is supporting people that are coming up and going, do you know what? I fancy going down the supervisor or the management route, or I want to go be a plant operator or a steel fixer or something else that they've seen.
The diversity and the ability, the diversity of roles and the ability to be able to move between them roles. Yeah, that's again not something that is talked about enough, and I think there's two really good points there, that you make about how, because I say this again as well, it's okay having it's okay having an event, and I think it's really important that we do have those events, but it's about then how it's about like sales. Is it like, I don't know, it's something like people, in order to buy, people need so many touch points before they're converted. And I always say it's the same with, trying to convert young people or trying to show young people about the industry. Yeah. One event is never going to do it. You need several touch points. But also as well, which, what you've said perfectly illustrates that. But also what you're also saying there, you're saying, you're kind of commending the school. It's a postcode lottery. This isn't something that's consistent. It's like if a school has somebody like you locally that can come in and do it and they're open to it, great. But those children are going to get that experience.
What I would say to that is there's more construction companies than there are schools.
Yeah, 100%.
Just in Hampshire alone, there's 2,000 businesses involved in construction.
There's plenty of opportunity for it.
As being on the CITB's Employer Network Steering Group, I know there's 2,000 just in Hampshire alone. Businesses need to open up and commit.
Yeah.
Commit to actually spending a bit of time, a day or so, a month.
Yeah.
Would make a huge difference in engaging with schools, engaging with the students, and just showcasing what we're all about. Showing them that we really care for our staff now, and we really support them through life's journey sometimes, because we don't all have plain sailing. But
it's also as well.
But I want iConstruct to go nationally.
And I think, and that's one of the reasons I wanted you on the podcast as well, is because I think that these things need to be happening nationally. But also as well, it's about sharing those stories with the parents and with the teachers as well, because you made a brilliant point that I also make, that often they can get the opportunity in school, but if they're then going home and mum's saying, no, that's not the right industry for you. Dad is saying, no, I was a bricklayer and it was awful, and, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not saying bricklayers because I've had some amazing bricklayer, but I'm just kind of, saying that often you will get people that have been in the industry. I hear it all the time. People that are in the industry go, I never want my son to come into this industry. I never want my daughter to come into this industry. It's a terrible industry. So we need to change the perception of parents, and not just people in the industry, people like,
careers advisors, teachers, head teachers.
Because they're the ones that are having the biggest influence on our younger generation.
And we work hard at the event whilst the students are doing their bit and their teachers and careers advisors are standing back watching them. We often, as part of my role, is to interact with them and start getting that message across to them about the many and varied roles available, and the fact that it's an incredible industry. They just need to reach out.
Yeah.
It's there, and the industry will to move heaven and earth to support them. They just need to do that first bit and engage themselves. Would actually make their job easier. But they don't seem to realise, a lot of them, some do, but there's a lot that don't yet. And my challenge is, through other training groups around the country like the HCTA, there's a network. We've already got an event format which we know is very successful. It works. We could easily roll that out, and I'm more than happy to help any training group in the country to set it up, what they need, how they need to do it, so I can give them the complete business model of what we've done and how we do it. Skipping all the bits that we weren't so good, that each year we sit and try and perfect the next one and we won't do that, we'll drop this, we'll do this.
And this is what we need. We need people leading on this and demonstrating how, because I think this is a lot of people don't necessarily want to take that first step, don't want to make the mistakes that you've made, whereas you can be like, these are the mistakes, these are the challenges that you'll come across, this is what we did to overcome it. You're leading the way. Yeah, well, you've got a model there.
I worked it out. If we had an iConstruct in each of the counties, that's 26,000 students that are going to be amazed about this industry over 2 days every year.
Do you have parents and teachers involved in it?
We have that one. We don't have teachers involved in it, apart from the fact they come along, bring the students, and then we try and explain to them all that's out there available to support these students and to support them in their roles. Little CPD events and things like that. But also, I'm trying to think of the point I'm trying to make now. My dyslexic brain's gone.
Is it about involving the parents? You said the teachers are involved.
Yeah, that's right. So what we're trying this year, which we've never done. So previous years, all the awards and trophies have been delivered by the companies who sponsored them to the school. And some schools were amazing. I've been to all the ones that luckily PCC have sponsored the award for. They've rolled the red carpet out for us. We've been in the main assembly. We have videos up there, so all the other students that didn't go could see as well. Really engaged, fantastic. But sadly, there was some that we just couldn't even get in contact with. Literally had to walk the trophy into reception and say, here's your trophy, type of thing. Oh, what was that for? So there seems to be a bit of a revolving door, which is another problem with careers advisors. There's a lot that don't know a lot about construction industry, but they also don't seem to be in the role for very long.
No, I know, and I think...
But this year we're trying a different approach with the trophies, and instead of going to the schools, we're inviting all of the careers advisors and teachers and parents if necessary, because we're doing... the event is open to homeschooling as well. So we've got
excellent.
A lot of homeschool children send students and all of this.
I was involved a lot with homeschool.
We're inviting them to an award evening ceremony. So the idea, we can then show some different types of videos about the event and what it's all about, to try and get them sort of better educated about this industry and what it has on offer.
I'm just wondering, you've got my mind racing, and we are going to have to wrap it up in a minute. But when you mentioned, obviously, I think you've got a blueprint now, and to be able to roll that out to other training associations and other authorities would be amazing. And I think it has to happen. And I'll be advocating.
I certainly hope so. Yeah. That's
anybody who is listening, please make sure that you do.
That's always been a plan from the start. When I actually said it, I said, if this is successful, I don't see any reason why training groups, associations around the country couldn't do something of the same or similar nature, and I would be happy to give the blueprint over.
Yeah. It just I think the key point here is that usually you need, and you've demonstrated that there needs to be kind of somebody driving forward with it. But I think there are so many people that want to do this, and I think the fact that you're leading the way should hopefully start a movement. But I also wonder, and again, you've already kind of touched on this, but how you can make it something that's, that's...
It's a unique event.
Well, I'm wondering how you can also create offshoots, different things as well throughout the year, so it's not just one event. Do you know what I mean?
One of the sad things that I wanted schools to do, which they haven't really took on board, which I hope, and I'll keep working on it, because tenacity is something that's written right through me like a stick of rock.
Yeah, I think that comes with the neurodiversity. It
probably, yeah. But I would love them to do projects leading up to it.
Yeah.
So they are better prepared. So they learn about presentation skills and stuff like that. Not just at the event, so they come better armed. So I give them a basic 14 question set for interviews for them to interview a company's staff. And I always say, when we're giving out awards, we're looking for schools that have worked on it prior to arriving and actually got their own question set.
Yeah.
That's a bit diving a bit deeper.
I think that's So there's there's just some, so that it's that you've got kind of a build up to it, something afterwards as well. And I think this is how we can start to get these things kind of more included within the curriculum. We can create more inclusive curriculums rather than it just being. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think the event is incredible, but I see it. I see it a lot where there's a one-off event. I used to do it when I worked with inclusion and diversity in schools, and there would be, there'd be one day a year that they kind of looked at, different cultures and ethnicities, and they'd have a great day. It'd be their international day or whatever, and I'd be like, great. I'm not taken away from that. However, you need to make sure that you're also looking at how you can embed some of this in within your curriculum throughout the rest of the year. So I think
it goes back to preparing people for work again.
Yeah, exactly.
Young people need to understand, and this is what the event is particularly good at, I think, is because the format it takes. Most adults would find this challenging and scary. You've got to remember they're years 7 to 11. They're coming along and they're interviewing, not being interviewed. They're interviewing a bunch of scary adults they've never met before, never spoken before, never seen before.
Those kids are pretty scary though, vice versa.
They've got to interview them. Then they've got to go away and make a presentation. And then they've got to present it in front of our industry leaders, our CEOs and what have you. It is... Most people would find it quite challenging. And do you know what? Every single group over the last 4 years has absolutely risen to the challenge. And I always say that young students are way more capable than we give them credit for.
And I think
most people give them credit for.
And I think, again, that shows, yes, the primary goal of the event is to promote the construction industry and show the amazing opportunities that are in it.
Try to teach them some life skills whilst
that's
they're
my point. That was my point. that was exactly going to be my point. In that you're also it's looking at skills.
It's heavily interactive. Yeah. It's not a typical careers event where they can just walk around. No, they are challenged. They have to do these pieces. Then it's playtime. Then they can go and have the fun. We've got 3 or 4 simulators, big training simulators that they can drive any piece of construction plant going, including the National Demolition Association bring along their training sim as well.
Yeah, we do a lot of that in Lincolnshire.
We've got robotics outside, plant outside, and what have you. They can get in. Talk to the operators and things like that.
Which is really important as well, definitely. And like I say, we do that in Lincolnshire as well. But what I really like is that with your event, you've got like one common theme, one common purpose. And that's really powerful because that can really be taken away and embedded within our curriculums. Yeah. And
I mean, some of the schools that have come there, with the work experience, they get involved with us. We've got one school which they every other couple of weeks have been coming to one of our construction sites, and they're meeting the staff on sites. They're finding out about the project. We're getting as close as we can possibly safely get them to the project in Southampton. So last week I was with a group of students. We were down at we're building a new substation, or rebuilding an old substation at Central Bridge, trying to show them how difficult the engineering is when people say, why did it take so long to do that? So they understand these things. And then, fun enough, we're building a new one at the Southampton City General, and they'll be going there, I believe, this week or next. So I'm working with their STEM head to Ellie to work on a more long-term project with these students, so they can. The project is 2 to 3 years long, and that's how long they're going to be at school. So therefore, try and work on a project alongside it, following the different phases of the construction of the project. So it starts to embed it more, so it becomes real.
And this is really, really important, is that we start to create a legacy with this and make sure that it's embedded.
I hope so. Yeah, that's certainly my passion, is to see it continue to grow. Whether it's only in Hampshire, which would be a shame, but fantastic for Hampshire.
Well, hopefully, we're going to see that's not going to be the case, and hopefully moving forward, we're going to see iConstruct across the
I
UK,
hope
which
so.
would be
I
amazing.
really, really hope so, because
So,
building a succession pipeline, it's like building a culture, takes years. There's no instant results. You know, you're talking of inspiring somebody that's in year 7 or 8 about the world of construction. It's going to be several years before we actually get a result with them saying, "Oh, can I have an apprenticeship, please?"
yeah, absolutely.
But I believe in, you know, build it and they will come.
Amazing. Well, thank you so
Well,
much.
thank
I
you.
love that. Build it and they will come. Absolutely love that. What a great way to wrap up the podcast. And
thank you very much for having me.
No, thank you. And thank you for sharing your passion, your enthusiasm, your vision. And I really hope that anybody listening who is thinking like you gets in touch, and
Definitely.
we can, change the face of construction and get more people.
There is no reason why we can't.
No, agreed.
Only reasons how we do it.
Exactly.
And like I say, and I would also just like to thank all the amazing people that have supported iConstruct since its birth 5 years ago, because they are incredible people, and without all these incredible people, it wouldn't be possible. So thank you very much.
No, thank you. Thank you, Jason.
Cheers, Rebecca.
It's been a pleasure.